We tell stories at Milwaukee PBS. Here's one you may have missed.
Welcome to the Arts Page. I'm your host, Sandy Maxx. We start our tour of history here on location at the beautiful Pabst Mansion on Wisconsin Avenue. This was home of the Milwaukee beer baron, Captain Frederick Pabst. The house was completed in 1892 and is one of the few surviving grand residences that still exist today in the city. In this reception hall, guests would have been welcome to admire both the home and the Pabst family's impressive art collection. You're invited now on a tour of this majestic home and get to know this influential family.
The Pabst Mansion is a historical home located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that represents a lot of the different pieces of history that speak to the city of Milwaukee. It is the story of German immigrants who started an entrepreneurial beer business and how that contributed to the landscape of Milwaukee during its formative years.
Captain Pabst emigrated from Germany when he was 12 years old, 1848. Eventually he became a Great Lakes steamship cabin boy and then rose to the rank of captain by the age of 21, so that's why we have the name Captain Pabst. When he was plying the waters of Lake Michigan, that apparently he met his future father-in-law, Philip Best, who owned a small brewery in Milwaukee, and Philip Best was traveling with his young daughter, Maria Best. They met and had a 2-year courtship and then were married in 1862. He invested half of his fortune into his father-in-law's brewing company and purchased a half interest in the Philip Best Brewing Company for $21,000, which doesn't seem like a lot of money today, but in those days, that was a significant sum. That really firmly made Milwaukee his home base, and he committed himself to the life of a brewer. By the 1880s, they pretty much had national distribution, and so in 1889, they changed the name from Best to Pabst. The year that the name is changed from Best Brewing Company to Pabst Brewing Company, you start seeing Captain Pabst doing a number of different things, and one of those important things that he did was to engage an architect to build a large mansion on Milwaukee's Grand Avenue, which is today West Wisconsin Avenue. Between 1890 and 1892, the house was built. They moved in July of 1892. The cost of the house was $254,000 and just over 20,000 square feet. So it is known as kind of the second largest home to have been built in Milwaukee. The largest was Mrs. Pabst's sister's house, which was twice the size of this home, which is remarkable.
There are actually 5 levels to the Pabst Mansion. The first, second, and third floor are what the family would have utilized for entertaining and their living spaces. The rear side, or the north side of the Pabst Mansion, was the living and working spaces for the staff here. Those are the levels the guests today will see. They'll be able to see the main areas the Pabst would have entertained in, their bedrooms, their private offices and studies here at the house, and then also where the servants would have eaten and helped prepare the food for the family. So these 3 principal rooms here on the first floor really where guests would have spent a lot of time with Frederick and Maria Pabst here at the house. Mrs. Pabst's parlor, or the ladies' parlor is a more general term for it, probably the most formal room in the house, the least utilized actually. It would have been just for the ladies. Mrs. Pabst and her daughters did not have formal jobs, but they did have a lot of entertainment to do here in the house. We're currently sitting in the music room. A lot of people think this could have doubled as a gentleman's parlor, but the family utilized this mostly as what we would call a living room today. The family celebrated Christmas in this room. They had a daughter that was married here in 1897 in the music room, and then both Frederick and Maria Pabst's funerals were also held here in this space. Just to the north of the music room here, this is the one spot in the home. The dining room is where the family would have entertained. Everything as far as entertaining at the home was going to be food-centric for the Pabst family. Second floor, Probably the section of the home the family spent most of their time in when they didn't have guests here. You're going to find the 4 principal family members who lived here, what we consider year-round or full-time, had their bedrooms on the 2nd floor. So a central hallway called the foyer, and then the bedrooms radiate off of that.
Guests that come to visit the mansion, they're here for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and they really, I think, are struck by the intimacy of the house, and that this really is kind of a family home rather than a vast mansion. Captain Pabst passes away on New Year's Day 1904. His wife remains here until her death in 1906, and it's eventually purchased by the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. And so for almost 7 decades, almost through the entirety of the 20th century, this was the home of 5 different archbishops. It's actually one of the things that saved the Pabst Mansion is that it continued to be used as a private residence. And so in 1978, our organization, with the help of 23 savings and loans, I always think that's kind of one of the best parts of the story, is that raising the money was really difficult, but 23 savings and loans each wrote a $10,000 mortgage to finance the purchase of the house. And so we were able to do that and opened formally for tours in May of 1978. When guests come to visit the Pabst Mansion today, they're seeing a very accurate view of, what the house was all about in the 1890s. We're very fortunate that the Pabst family commissioned Milwaukee Society photographer Simon Stein to come into the house in 1897 and photograph 2 to 3 views of all the principal rooms in the house. The Pabst family has been extraordinarily generous in loaning and donating original objects back to the house. And so the mansion is actually repopulated with entire rooms of original furniture and then objects and artwork.
When you're walking through the house, you experience some unique things from our history that set a path for where we are today.
It's a house built by Milwaukee architects for Milwaukee clients, by Milwaukee craftsmen, and I think showcases Milwaukee at its very best.
Watch the Arts page on Milwaukee PBS and watch online at milwaukeepbs.org.